Hi, it's Sean here with another Gadget Guy segment, and today I have the ultimate gadget. It's a new camera. So what I thought I'd do is take you through the process I go through when I get something like this. As you'll notice, I have actually opened the box, and I actually opened the box and I grabbed the manual. So that was the first and only thing I did. I grabbed the manual and I've been through it and looking, I like to go through the manual one time just to get the highlights, look at the things that are different. This camera is very similar to my other camera, which is the 30D, and this is the Canon EOS 40D, which is just the next line in that prosumer range that I like to be in. I'm not ready for those big pro cameras yet. I don't make a living at it, so this camera is perfect for me, and I have nothing against Nikon. I just started with Canon. So I'm sticking with Canon. All my lenses are Canon. So for you people out there thinking about starting an SLR from your point and shoot, it's very important to remember that once you start with a line, unless you have a lot of money to throw around, you're likely going to stay with it because you're going to buy your additional lenses, and once you've done that, you're pretty much stuck. Both the major players, and I guess most of the others too, they make sure that the lenses go from camera body to camera body, so that's a good thing. So let's get started and see what's on the inside. Again, I had my manual out. Okay, the package, this is the package that the manual came in, and in here is some stuff that I usually don't look at, but you know, I'm a guy, so I don't usually read the instructions. I read the manual, but I don't necessarily read the instructions. But they have some quick setup guides and stuff like that. But I already know how the camera is set up and what I have to do. So what it does have, though, the software discs. These are important. You don't have to use the software discs. What I want is the software that connects the camera to the computer. And the reason I want that is so that I can do shooting where tethered shooting with the USB cord, so it puts the image right up onto the screen. That's the only reason I would use this. I don't use the Canon RAW processing, and I don't use any of the other software that they send. I use my Photoshop and my Bridge to do everything else, RAW conversion and stuff like that. Which reminds me, I better check to make sure that the new version of RAW in the 40D is compatible with Photoshop. Very quickly after cameras are released, Photoshop usually releases an update to their RAW processing software to include all the new cameras. But sometimes when they did the 30D, there was, you know, maybe a month period where there wasn't a RAW converter. So, or actually, you know what? I think it was me who didn't know what I was doing back then. But all right, so inside we have the battery charger, the battery, cables, the camera strap. Word of advice, I screwed up with the camera strap once, didn't put it on right, my camera slipped right off of it after a little while. So it's very important to follow the instructions to get that right. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fully charge my battery. So before I get started, I'm going to actually fully charge the battery. Then I'm going to take out the beautiful thing, the new camera. So here it is. I bought it body only kit. With the body only, of course, you're not getting a lens. If it's your first SLR, I would say if it's your first SLR, buy the best kit you can afford because you're going to get a really good lens at a discounted price in a kit. So if it's your first SLR, then you definitely want to go with a kit because they do give you a heck of a break on that first lens. And I would always go for a kit with maybe a higher end lens. I think this one comes with a 17 to 85 IS, which is a great lens. The 18 to 55 kit's probably cheaper, but that lens you're likely going to want to replace fairly quickly. So here's the new camera. Very similar to my old camera, the 30D. There's a few new buttons. I've already been through the manual, so I know there's some really cool new features. First of all, it's now got a 3-inch LCD as opposed to the 2.5-inch LCD, and that's big. That's a big LCD for reviewing your images in, which is fantastic. Then across the bottom here as well, there's some new buttons. Before there was just play and trash and jump. We now have a really nice feature, which is your selection button, your type selection. So you can choose whether you want a portrait setting, a landscape setting, all with one touch. In the 30D, the only way you could do that was to actually custom set up one of your other buttons to launch that. Of course, you're on, off, and then turning the scroll wheel on, and then your regular buttons. The new 40D also now has an autofocus on button at the back for back focusing, which is a fantastic feature. I'm not exactly sure how I'm going to how that works, because I use the custom function in the 30D to set up my other button for back focusing. So I prefer back focusing and just use the front button for exposure lock, and that way I could recompose and just, instead of using under and over compensation, exposure compensation, I would just auto exposure lock with different variants of light and dark in the screen and do it that way. Dave Chidley taught me that on the Sedona trip. The other great thing about this camera is it's now a 10 megapixel camera. It also has sensor cleaning, so every time you turn the camera on and off, it cleans the sensor by shaking what's in front of the sensor. It's also 6.5 frames per second, which is only a frame and a half per second faster than the 30D, but you never know. That frame and a half might be that perfect action shot. Well, there we have it. I just put in the battery. It's fully charged now. It's time for the lens. So I'm going to put the lens on for the first time. It's a standard EF mount for the Canon. I have here probably my favorite lens, which is my 24-70L series lens for Canon. Just lovely. It feels great. Actually, this camera feels, I think it feels even better than the 30D. It feels really well. Now, there's some really cool features like auto ISO and stuff like that. So it's going to take me a while to get used to this camera. But I'm going to set it in I usually shoot in P mode to start with, then vary from there. I'll do manual if I'm in the studio using strobes where I want that finite control over it. So I'm going to go ahead now, take my first picture. Well, that's great. It's actually even quieter. The one thing I did read in the manual is it's motor up and motor down on the mirror. And what that does has the effect of, instead of springing up and giving you that snap, it actually motors the mirror up, so it motors it up and then motors it down, and then the shot is taken. And that, I think the effect that that's having, it's a bit quieter. So, well, that's another segment, and I'm going to get out and start using this. Thanks, and we'll see you next time.